What's going on, guys? Khalifa's Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the Motorola Moto G Stylus 5G. This phone is the counterpart to the Motorola Moto G Stylus 2021 that was released earlier this year. In this video, I'm going to be going over everything you need to know about this phone to help you decide whether or not it's the right one for you. Now, before we go any further, I do want to remind you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It helps out the channel a lot. That being said, let's get into it. Now, before we get into the phone itself, let's go ahead and take a look at what comes in the box. So in here, we got a quick start guide and a SIM card removal tool. We got a USB-C charging cable and a Motorola branded wall charger. And now, without further ado, let's get into the device itself. So this phone has a 6.8-inch IPS LCD display with a resolution of 1080p, a PPI of 386, an aspect ratio of 20:9, and a screen-to-body ratio of 85%. We got a hole punch design for the front-facing camera, and this camera looks really nice. This camera is 16 megapixels, by the way. I really like the overall design of this phone. It has really thin bezels and a really nice, sleek, modern look. As far as the display itself, I do have the brightness at 100% and it looks really good. As you would expect with a mid-level phone like this, it has a 1080p display, which is really nice, and for its price range for a 5G phone, there are several other phones that I've seen that only have 720p displays, so this phone has an advantage over those for sure. Another thing I really like about this phone compared to other 5G phones in this price range is the size of the display. This one is definitely really big, which is going to be good for stuff like content consumption. If you're streaming videos, viewing photos, reading, all that sort of thing, you're going to want to have a larger display so you can see all the fine details closer up. Now, one thing that can be a drawback with larger displays like this is the phone gets a little awkward to hold in your hand and carry in your pocket. But with this phone, we have a really thin design that makes it so slim that you don't notice it, so it's still pretty comfortable to hold and it's comfortable to carry around too. For storage, this phone has 256 gigabytes of internal storage with microSD card expansion. Now, I do want to let you know this is the unlocked variant of this phone that you can get straight from Motorola. The variants provided by different carriers might have less storage and less RAM. So based on the specific carrier you have, your storage and RAM might be a little bit different from this one. That being said, this specific variant of the phone does have 256 gigabytes of internal storage, which for a mid-level phone, even a 5G phone, is a lot. In order to get that much storage, you would normally have to go up to a flagship phone like the Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra or the iPhone 12 Pro Max, something like that that's really a high-end, top-of-the-line flagship phone. Typically, mid-level phones usually cap out around 128 gigabytes. Now, there are exceptions to that, of course, and this phone is definitely one of them. So if you are more of a power user, if you have lots of apps and photos and videos and all that sort of thing, you're gonna really benefit from having a phone like this with so much storage. Even if you're more of a normal user and don't have a ton, it's good to have more storage than you think you need because apps in the system and pretty much everything is all getting larger and larger. So having extra space is always nice. Now, there's no wireless charging on this phone, but it does have a fingerprint scanner and face unlock. The fingerprint scanner is located right back here in the classic spot for a fingerprint scanner. Now, I was a little surprised by this because a lot of the time, Motorola does have their fingerprint scanners on the power key, and I like that a lot better than that location specifically. Not to say that it's bad, but it is a little bit more convenient to have a fingerprint scanner on the power key. Another thing a lot of manufacturers like Samsung, for example, have been doing with their more upper mid-level phones is putting the fingerprint scanner in the display. And I personally really like that look, especially with a phone like this that has a nice modern look anyway. Having an in-display fingerprint scanner would have really contributed to that look and made it even better. But that being said, this location is really not bad, so let's go ahead and give it a try. And there we go, one more time. And there we go. So as you can see, this fingerprint scanner is really fast and responsive, so no issues there. Taking a look at the rear camera setup, the Motorola Moto G Stylus 5G has a 48 megapixel rear camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera, a 5 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. So this phone has pretty much every camera feature you would expect in a mid-range phone. And not only that, but each feature is really high quality as well. This is a photo taken with the main camera of this phone. As you can see, this is a real nice photo. All the details are really sharp and the colors look really nice. Everything is really good. The only thing I would say is the brightness isn't quite what I would expect. It didn't handle the exposure and all that as well as some other phones I've seen. This photo was taken right in the middle of the sun in broad daylight, and it looks a little dim for my taste, but you are able to play around with the exposure while you're taking the picture in the camera app. And after I did that, this is what I got. So it's not that big a deal. And really, other than that, this camera is great. This is another photo taken with the main camera, and this time I didn't have to do anything. I just snapped the picture real quick and it all turned out really good. So as you can see, this phone is capable of taking some really high quality photos. So whether you're a more casual user of the camera and only like to take a few nice pictures every now and then, or you're a more frequent user of the camera who likes to use every feature available, this phone's camera is gonna work for you either way. For video, this phone has a max quality of 1080p in both the rear and the front cameras. Now this isn't really bad, but at the same time, it's a little disappointing considering the 4G counterpart of this phone can actually shoot in 4K in the rear camera, but this phone can't shoot in 4K at all. So if you are really into shooting videos and you want that 4K quality, then you might be a little disappointed with this. But if you only shoot in 1080p anyway, this phone does shoot pretty good videos, so you're not going to be disappointed in that case. Internally, this phone is getting 6 gigabytes of RAM with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 480 5G processor. Now again, I do want to remind you, this might be different depending on the carrier you get it through. This specific variant with 6 gigabytes of RAM is the unlocked variant of the phone that you get straight from Motorola. Unfortunately, sometimes certain carriers do cut the storage and the RAM. That being said, I did run a Geekbench 5 benchmark test on this phone, and I came back with a single core score of 494 and a multi-core score of 1336. So this is not bad at all. But at the same time, I did expect a little bit more from a 5G phone, considering a lot of phones nowadays in this price range, even 4G ones, have quite a bit more processing power than this. If you're using your phone for more basic activities and even more moderate activities like heavy social media use, streaming videos, playing games, even some video editing and that sort of thing, you're gonna be fine. This phone's gonna be able to do pretty much everything you want, but at the same time, I would caution you not to expect super high-end flagship type performance from this phone because it's not quite at that level. This phone has a 5,000 milliamp hour battery that supports 10 watt fast charging, so that's really impressive. Having a battery this large is not only going to give you a ton of life per charge, but it's also going to give you longevity down the road, because as batteries degrade, when you have a large battery like the one in this phone, it's not going to be as noticeable as fast, so you won't have to replace the phone as soon. This is real nice if you like to get one phone and keep it for a long period of time. And of course, fast charging is great too, because with a fast charger, you're going to be able to charge this phone a lot more in a shorter period of time than you would with a phone that doesn't support fast charging at all. This phone does have Android 11, which is really nice for a Motorola phone, and it also has a water repellent design, so it's a little bit more resistant to water than your average mid-level phone. The unfortunate thing about this phone is that for all its features, it doesn't have NFC, which is a big disappointment to me because I personally love to use contactless mobile payment services, and NFC is necessary in order to use those services. Since this feature is becoming more and more common in every phone nowadays, from mid-level phones all the way down to entry-level phones, I would have thought that Motorola would have included NFC in this phone. Now that we've gone over some of the specs of this phone, let's take a closer look at the hardware. On the left side, we got the slot for the SIM card and the micro SD card. On the bottom, we got a 3.5mm headphone jack, a USB-C charging port, the microphone, and the speaker. We have a stylus right here, and I really like the design of this stylus. The other one had a weird design where you had to put it in a certain direction, and it's not that hard, but for whatever reason, I could never get it right. I just must be really bad with styluses. But this one is great because it's so much easier to use, even for someone like me who's just terrible with styluses. On the right side, we got the volume keys and our power key. On the top of the phone, we got the noise canceling microphone, and on the back, we got our camera setup, our flash, and our fingerprint scanner. So in conclusion, my final thoughts about the Motorola Moto G Stylus 5G. I honestly think this is a really nice phone. It not only has a great design and a great display to go along with that for content consumption, whether it's video streaming, viewing photos, playing a game, even reading, having a large screen with a high resolution is going to be a great asset to you. And in addition to that, the phone is thin enough to not be too awkward to hold or carry around despite having a 6.8-inch display. The phone has a ton of storage, at least this specific variant does. I'm hoping most carriers don't cut the storage too much because this is one of my favorite features of the phone. I wasn't expecting to see a mid-level phone like this with 256 gigabytes, and that's really impressive. So if you're a power user on more of a budget, then this aspect of this phone is gonna be a huge strength. The phone also has a really good camera, so if you're taking photos for professional purposes, or if you just want to get some nice pics for social media, this is going to be good too. And the battery is really large. And overall, the phone is really well-rounded and is going to be able to fit a wide variety of different needs. That being said, I'm not too impressed with the processor, and it is a little disappointing that they took away the 4K video with this phone compared to its 4G counterpart. But overall, if you're looking for a 5G phone with some really nice features, a great display, and a lot of storage, the Motorola Moto G Stylus 5G is gonna be a great option. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you found this information useful as well. If you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next video.